And in sports, the Battle of the Stars. Ghana's Black Stars take on Kenya's Harambee Stars in Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers. We start in Mali, where gunmen have killed about 60 Fulani herders in an apparent ethnically motivated attack. Local authorities describe it as one of the deadliest in a region reeling from worsening ethnic and jihadist violence. According to the mayor of the town of Bankas, men dressed as Donzo hunters attacked the nearby village of Okasagu at around 4 a.m. local time. The assault came as the UN Security Council mission visited Mali to try to find solutions to violence that killed hundreds of civilians last year and is spreading across West Africa's Sahel region. Now to Somalia, and the country is reeling from a deadly terrorist attack that has claimed several lives. On Saturday morning, Al-Shabaab militants set off 2 car bombs and then stormed into a government building. The militants then engaged in gunfire with the police. From Mogadishu, here's CGTN's Abdulaziz Billo.
Saturday's complex attack targeted this government building that houses various government ministries. Al-Shabaab took credit for the bombings that was followed by a commando-style raid by 5 heavily armed men on the building that hosts the Ministry of Labour and that of the General Works, Reconstruction and Housing.
The first blast targeted the main entry to the ministry. After that, we saw smoke, followed by a heavy exchange of gunfire. God protected us and we managed to escape. A second blast followed immediately, but we were at a safe distance by then.
Police say they managed to neutralize all 5 attackers during the brief siege. Dozens of civilians, including civil servants, were rescued from the buildings that is also near a regional police headquarters.
We ferried victims of the blast to nearby hospitals. We arrived immediately after the blast went off at Juba intersection.
Among those killed include the Somali Deputy Minister for Labour and Social Affairs, Saqar Ibrahim Abdullah. Prime Minister Hassan Ali Khaire condemned attacks, vowing to wipe out Al-Shabaab from his country.
I hereby inform the Somali public that the Somali government is committed to intensifying its fight against terrorists. We will continue to pursue terrorist elements until we clear them from the country.
The attacks on the government building comes less than a month after the group laid a deadly siege on a popular hotel in downtown Mogadishu that claimed more than a dozen lives. Insecurity continues to be a major challenge in Somalia, with deadly bombings and assassinations continuing to claim lives in a city often a target for the Al-Qaeda-linked terrorist group. Earlier this week, government troops abandoned several defense outposts on the outskirts of Mogadishu over lack of payment, allowing Al-Shabaab to retake control of strategic villages linking the capital Mogadishu to the agricultural-rich regions of the lower and middle Shabelle regions. Authorities have been criticized for not launching major offensives to seize new territories under the militant group. The Somali government says it will intensify its fight against the insurgent group that continues to wage a deadly insurgency in the country for the past decade now. Government forces backed by a 20,000-strong multinational peacekeeping force known as AMISOM have been unable to end the threat posed by the militant group. Experts now say until the group loses its last remaining stronghold, it will continue to remain a regional threat. Abdulaziz Billo, CGTN, Mogadishu, Somalia.
To Mozambique now, where the Land and Environment Ministry says the death toll caused by Cyclone Idai has now risen to 417. It's feared that the death toll may rise as some areas have become inaccessible due to flooded roads and damaged infrastructure. Mozambique was rocked by Cyclone Idai last week. It left a trail of destruction as it swept through the port city of Beira, where hospitals, schools and houses have all suffered severe damage. The city has no running water and has also recorded cases of cholera. Families taking shelter in relief camps have been queuing to collect drinking water. Here's CGTN's Angelo Coppola with more.
Aid agencies are on the ground in Beira, and while the initial focus was to get people to safety, their attention now shifts.
While we're having some recess in water in some parts of the affected areas, it's still raining, and people are not yet off the hook, and we should be ready to accompany them in the mid and long term.
The clearing up has begun in earnest, and it's going to be a long process before everything's fully functional again.
To create the conditions of the healthcare, the house care, and the reconstruction of the infrastructures. It's our total availability to promote this good cooperation between Portuguese governments and Mozambican governments.
As aid agencies struggle with road access, the port was initially closed for just 2 days as the terminal operator dealt with a few minor issues, including damaged computer systems.
The port is fully operational again. What we're now waiting for is the road to become open, because Beira as a port serves the entire hinterland. Zimbabwe, Zambia, Malawi, they'll use the port of Beira, and there's only one road. But what we understand, emergency repairs are underway, and we expect by Monday morning the first trucks to start going again.
While the initial focus was to get people off the high ground and those buildings that they were waiting on for a couple of days, in some cases a week even, the strategy has now changed, and now those fishing boats are going to be going out with aid. I'm Angelo Coppola for CGTN in the port of Beira, Mozambique.
Meanwhile, the Chinese government has donated $800,000 to Zimbabwe to help with its relief effort.
The Chinese embassy in Zimbabwe is authorized to announce that the Chinese government decided to donate $800,000 in cash as emergency humanitarian assistance to Zimbabwean government to help its disaster relief and rebuilding effort. As a brother of Zimbabwe, China will always stand side by side with Zimbabwe at such a difficult moment, and will continue to help the Zimbabwean people to overcome difficulty within its ability. The Chinese government and the Chinese community in Zimbabwe will also join Zimbabwean government and Zimbabwean people in the reconstruction efforts.
The newly appointed Chinese ambassador to Kenya, Wu Peng, has arrived in Nairobi. He was received at the airport by delegates from Kenya's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, as well as the counselor of the Chinese embassy. Ambassador Wu says promoting China-Kenya relations and the One Belt, One Road initiative will be a priority. Under the strong leadership of President Xi Jinping and President Uhuru Kenyatta, bilateral relations have developed by leaps and bounds. China is engaged in a comprehensive economic and trade area with Kenya.
I am willing to serve as the envoy of China in Kenya and work with all the comrades in the Chinese embassy in Kenya to study and implement the diplomacy idea of President Xi Jinping, actively practice the major country diplomacy with Chinese characteristics, and actively serve the Chinese in Kenya in accordance with the principle of diplomacy for the people who are overseas from China. On the basis of my predecessor and former ambassadors, I would like to push forward the relationship between the two countries, together with various institutions in Kenya, including your media.
We are going to a short break now. Don't go away. Lots more to come, including hundreds of thousands march in London to demand new Brexit referendum. And later, artwork on African mysticism showcases at London Gallery.
Data out of the country.
With a dedicated and diverse team of anchors, CGTN now brings Africa to the palm of your hand.
I'm Penina Karibe in the heart of Nairobi, which is bustling.
From everyday heroes to the continent's most powerful figures, we bring their voices to you.
We haven't changed, and this is something most of us are very excited about.
We bring you news that's changing perspectives. News that brings Africa to the world. CGTN. See the difference. Africa Live. find your voice.
Now, with the latest on Brexit, where hundreds of thousands have flooded the streets of London, calling for the government to put it to the people and hold a second referendum. Politicians have been addressing a rally that has descended on Westminster. Protesters are saying that the debate needs to be taken out of Parliament. Rally organisers were expecting the headcount to exceed that of a similar rally last October, where more than 700,000 turned up. In an historic referendum in 2016, the UK voted to leave the European Union. Since then, those against Brexit have been exploring ways to hold another referendum. Prime Minister Theresa May has repeatedly ruled out a second referendum, saying it would undermine democracy. Kurdish-led forces have formally announced the defeat of ISIL after taking the jihadist group's last bastion in eastern Syria. In a ceremony on Saturday, a US coalition official hailed the victory.
We congratulate the Syrian people, and particularly the Syrian Democratic Forces, on the destruction of ISIS's fraudulent caliphate and for the liberation of ISIS's remaining territory in eastern Syria.
A military parade was also held to mark the victory over ISIL, but while the jihadist group has been defeated, it still remains a threat. Syrian Democratic Forces say that it will continue military operations to fully eliminate the group. It also called on the Syrian government to recognize the autonomous administration that runs areas under SDF control. It's urging Turkey, which considers the SDF a terrorist group, to leave Syrian territory, particularly the Kurdish majority region of Afrin. Environmentalists in Ghana are calling for the creation of eco-parks and widespread tree planting across the country's green spaces to help mitigate the impact of climate change. CGTN's Nabil Ahmed Rufai reports now from Accra.
Michael Olusegun from the environmental group Greenway International is checking on the progress of trees he planted just over a year ago. This eco-park in a suburb of Accra is used for recreation while helping to improve the city's environmental management.
We are experiencing a lot of heat in Accra now, and I believe that the only way to tackle this is by planting more trees to reduce the temperature, and this will help tackle climate change.
The mean temperature in Ghana has increased by 1 degree Celsius since 1960, with the largest impacts being felt in the north. Ghana's rapid urbanization is adding to the volume of greenhouse gases being pumped into the atmosphere locally. By 2030, Ghana says it plans to reduce its greenhouse gas emissions by 15%. Ghana is planning to increase investments in renewable energy and encourage people to reduce and recycle plastics. Greenway International aims to plant 1 million trees in Ghana by 2030 to help the country meet the UN sustainable goal of reducing the impact of climate change. Nabil Ahmed Rufai, CGTN, Accra, Ghana.
Egypt is keen to create public awareness about water pollution and dangers of plastic waste. Hundreds of Egyptians gathered on the banks of the River Nile for a massive cleanup. Here's Adel El Mahrouki with more.
Egypt's main source of water is the River Nile. That precious resource, however, has been recently polluted by tons of wastes. Marking International Water Day, an Egyptian group invited volunteers to come collect waste off the Nile shores. Hundreds showed up.
We are celebrating the World International Water Day at one of the biggest cleanup in Egypt, welcoming more than 800 volunteers from different community groups. We are very happy to welcome all those people. We are very happy raising awareness to all these people about the plastic and the dangers of this. This is give us hope that we are going to make a change.
The Very Nile initiative began last December. So far, they've held 4 cleanup rounds, lifting more than 10 tons of waste from the river and its shores.
We want every Egyptian to become aware of how dangerous plastic is. It doesn't degenerate. It is very harmful for all creatures, and in one way or another, it will affect us. We talk about the alternatives for plastics, and many people have stopped drinking from the River Nile because they have lost trust in water cleanliness.
Awareness about preserving this river has been recently growing. After all, it represents 85% of Egypt's water resources. People here cannot afford to tamper with it.
I participated for the first time. I learned the importance of cleaning Nile shores from garbage and plastic waste. We know now what happens when the plastic components are mixed with our drinking water, how toxic they are, and how difficult it becomes to extract them in the process of cleaning water. We must have a decent source of clean water. I brought my daughter with me. I wanted her to learn that community collaboration world and how together society members complement one another for our own good.
With volunteers like Hassan bringing their children to such events, there is hope that the next generation would turn out to be more aware about the benefits of protecting the Nile from pollution. Egyptians use 12 billion plastic bags annually and produce some 970,000 tons of plastic waste. Only 45% are recycled and just 5% reused.
With their main resource of water threatened with irreversible plastic solution, the International Water Day comes as a reminder for Egyptians that the entire society must move to stop polluting the Nile before it becomes too late. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
In London, an exhibition is exploring magic and mysticism in African cultures. Curated by fashion designer Grace Bonner-Jones, the exhibition invites viewers to experience multi-sensory installations and a series of events.
At London's Serpentine Sackler Gallery, an exhibition explored the themes of African mysticism and ritual. It featured music, fashion, art, and design by artists who are either African or of African descent. Titled A Time for New Dreams, the show draws its name from a 2011 collection of essays by the Nigerian poet Ben Okri.
This is desperately a time for new dreams, because the old dreams, we see the results of the old dreams. We see where it's leading. We see where it has led. It's a dead-end road. A dead-end road of hatred and division. A dead-end road of the normalization of the dehumanization of people.
I think I was looking at ways that different black artists and intellectuals have addressed ideas of magic and ritual mysticism, and how that can be communicated through aesthetics and the kind of sacred threads or the continuity of that conversation, how that can be formed in very different mediums.
Grace Wells Bonner is the creative force behind this eclectic collection of works. A Central St. Martin's graduate, her fashion label is stocked at high-profile stores including Selfridges and Dover Street Market. Bonner sees fashion as a way to understand her own identity and cultural heritage. Her Serpentine show is part of an ongoing series of short projects that unite Africa and its diaspora.
The themes of the continuance of culture throughout the diaspora, the things that unite us, the things that bring us together in terms of ritual practice, in terms of shrines, in terms of a kind of consciousness, a kind of raised consciousness. Grace, in this exhibition, is actually trying to retriangulate the diaspora, to unify all these, what appears to be different elements, but actually have got great unity. And that's one of the many things that people love about this exhibition. Not only the sense of ritual, the sense of shrines.
Bonner wants to turn the show into a traveling exhibition. She hopes it can reach places that she has a past connection to, like South Africa or Ghana. Brian Toussaint, CGTN.
All the sport coming up after the break, including the Battle of the Stars. Ghana's Black Stars take on Kenya's Harambee Stars in Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers.
greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Qanater, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
Africa, where champions are made, records are broken, legends are born. We're there for every goal, for every knockout, for every step of the way.
Match Point, only on CGTN.
Africa Live. Find your voice.